Okay, so last time, as you can see, I stopped towards the end of the story, just few 2-3 paragraphs before the ending. Now, as you can see, the story is, as I told you really last time, in sort of a really funny, weird, strange, dramatic way of really of confessing. A man, as I said, who's, literally admitting and accepting and really trying to convince us, readers or whoever maybe is listening, that he's okay, he's not mad. And he thinks he has all the justifications to have killed his neighbor, which is in itself, really, the whole thing in itself is a mad thing, is a terrible thing, is a weird, horrible, ugly thing. So really the writer, as I told you last time, and in a funny way, really, Edgar Allan Poe is actually telling a story about really the psychological problems that man sometimes, some people really have. And, they will say to you, well, it's not really me. I didn't do anything. I was not in control, if you like, mentally speaking or psychologically speaking or something. But as you can see, the whole idea is not acceptable in any way, acceptable to anybody or to any society or any standards or moral or social standards, is never really, absolutely never acceptable. So here he goes on and on and on and tell us, look, I was doing this and I was doing that and I was doing this and I was aware and I was fully in control of myself and I was, I knew what I was doing and I was careful and so on and so forth. So I'm not mad. I was not mad. But I did it because, of a certain reason, which is to us, the whole, I think, listeners and the whole of society, the excuse in itself, the whole idea in itself is actually madness. Yeah, do you agree? Do you agree? Hello? Can you hear me, boys and girls?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? Do you agree with me that this is totally, the opposite of maybe he's expecting us to forgive him and to say, yeah, okay, he has a mental problem, he has a social problem, he has a physical problem, or whatever. So therefore, maybe we can forgive him, or we can accept the fact that he's not, because when he's saying I was, I'm completely sort of, as he always says, extremely sensitive about things, and this is my extreme sensitivity, which is the reason, which is the cause. But again, as I said, is this enough to accept, somebody's crime like that? So really the story here is to do with, as I said, the importance and the value and really the role of psychology, how much psychology really, in a devastating way, really in a devastating way, can change our life and can control on our life, and really not just can, but in any way we say controls our life. We are always controlled by this psychic mental thing in our mind. And sometimes, yes, I think this is absolutely true that, you know, if you think about something and if you always, you know, your mind is preoccupied with something, and you'll go crazy, you know. So this is the idea, you know, the writer is saying, well, this is the effect of psychic moments, or really the effect of psychology as such, you know, in general. So that's why here, when he was talking and trying to tell us how this went on, you know, at the end of the day, by all his behavior, all his attitude, the way he invited them, the way he put the chairs in the room, the way he sat right on the top of the body where the body was buried in the floor, you know, everything, all this behavior to some extent, you know, means one thing, that he is not normal. He is not normal, really. And again, we say, what is normal? You know, what is normal? And I think this is the idea, you know, the question of normality and abnormality. So really the story is saying, yeah, we are absolutely controlled, devastated, dominated, even demonized and sentenced and punished when we deserve, of course, when we deserve to be punished. I think most of the time we are punished psychologically when we commit a crime, and that's really the idea, that this man thought that he is going to run away with it. You know, nobody would know what he did, and he thought that it was perfect. He said, absolutely perfect, not a spot of blood, nothing is clear, nothing can be shown whatsoever. And the people, you know, the men who came to the house, they looked everywhere. It is absolutely normal, yes. But what is the really, you know, the effect and the abnormal thing is the crime itself. That's why, you know, nobody can commit a crime, perfect crime, without being really discovered. Really, this is true, absolutely true. People think that if you do something, nobody will know. Nobody will know. But you see, you know, the story is saying that, yes, maybe you can kill somebody. Yes, maybe you can hide a crime. Yes, etc. But at the end of the day, he said, or the story really is saying, a crime is going to be revealed in one way or another. And that's why, you know, the whole idea of psychology to say about crime, or there is no perfect crime. There's no perfect crime. Absolutely no perfect crime. Because always there will be something which will lead to discovery, which will lead to incriminalize the person, or to really not just incriminalize, because anybody who kills somebody else, therefore he could be, he should be, he might be, he is a criminal. So he will be shown, he will be discovered. And I think this is the story here. The whole thing, his act, his behavior tells that he is the killer. And at the end of the day, you know, the last minute, his mind, his body, his head couldn't tolerate it. And he, you know, cried and said, yeah, here, it's the body. You know, as we say sometimes, I think we say this, وَكَادَ الْمُرِيبُ أَنْ يَقُولَ خُذُونِي. وَكَادَ المريب أن يقول خذوني. Yeah, isn't it? You've heard of this saying in Arabic? Yeah, meaning your behavior, the way you behave, the way you act will show that you have done something wrong. Really, that's the idea here. And notice the paragraph, of course, is saying the officers were satisfied. The manner had convinced them. You see, everything was fine. They believed they didn't see anything. And even the whole thing, again, look at the word the manner, meaning the way I behaved, it was fine. But you see, this is again what I said, the problem with his mind, because his mind is not easy. So that's why the way everything looked fine, except his behavior. Later on, of course, it's his behavior. So that's why he said, my manner, and that's why notice here the word manner underlined to say, well, the way I was behaving, to some extent at the beginning, it was fine because I showed them everywhere and we sat in the room and I told them and I showed them all the signs and the descriptions and I looked everywhere in the house, everywhere, nothing, absolutely nothing. So these men, these policemen, they said, okay, you know, or even they didn't say anything. They seemed to be happy. I was singularly at ease. Well, well, he thought he was at ease, but he was not really, because his behavior showed that he was not easy. Really, he was not at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted of familiar things. But ere long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. So here from now on, you know, after a little while, he said, well, they sat. He said, okay, you can sit here. And they sat and they started chatting. But then suddenly he said, what did I do here? Why did I ask them to sit? I want them to go. So from this moment, you know, onwards, his behavior, of course, or his manner, again, his manner was not acceptable, was not convincing. Before long, I felt myself getting pale and wished them gone. My head ached and I fancied a ringing in my ears. You know, again, notice he said fancied. You know, I thought maybe it's my fancy, you know. Yeah, well, he's fancying because he's a criminal, because he did something wrong. So that's why he's fancying. But still, they sat and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct. So as if there's something in my ear and, you know, ringing, he said, ringing, went on and on and on. It continued and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued and gained, notice here again, his word, gained definitiveness. You mean absolutely definite. I was definite and I was sure there's something in my ears. You know, otherwise it continued and it became, you know, very clear that I have something in my ear. And that's what he means, definitiveness, you know, definitiveness. Until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. What? So the noise, he said, oh, it's not in my ears, it's somewhere else. You know, he was looking. Where is this voice coming from? You know, he started to ask. was not within my ears. You see, yeah, it was in his ears, really. It was in his mind, actually. It was in his mind. By the way, there was no voice, no beating of the heart, nothing. The story which says the telltale heart, really, the heart was not telling anything because the heart was dead. But the psychological crime in his mind made him think, made him feel, made him sense that there is a heart beating, a dead heart still beating. And the heart is telling the story. Yes, yeah, of course, it's in his mind, in his crazy mind. And that's why he said, no doubt I grew very pale. You know, again, notice the word very here is emphasizing, saying, yeah, I became you know, unhappy or uneasy in any way, so very pale. But I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice. Yet the sound increased. And what could I do? Yeah. So he said, maybe, you know, there's a voice somewhere. And he said, I could hear it. So how can I get rid of it? So he thought by talking loud, you know, he could get rid of it. But of course, this will not do. Notice, heightened voice. I was raising my voice higher and higher and higher and shouting. And of course, the policeman would say, what's wrong with you? Come on. What's wrong with you, man? Yet the sound increased. And what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound. Much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. Yeah, now he remembers the story when he was talking about the clock ticking, tick, tick, tick. And he said, like, you know, he's recalling the idea when he killed the man for the first time. And he thought that, you know, he was hearing his voice, or sorry, his heart beating like the sound or like the ticking of the clock. And he's saying, now I can hear as if a clock being smothered, or as he said, as you can see, notice, enveloped, you know, meaning not wanting it to be heard. It was low, dull, quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. This is a simple, as I said, reference to the time when he killed the man and tried to stop him, of course, and the way he did, you know, the way he killed him in enveloping his body and with the quilt, and he killed him completely there, smothered him. I gasped for breath. For breath? Well, so he seems out of breath. What's wrong with him? So it seems that he himself is losing his breath, and maybe he feels somebody's enveloping him. Yet the officers heard it not. He said, well, these policemen didn't hear anything. It was only me. I talked more quickly, more vehemently. Again, you know, he was trying to show himself to be not just normal, even more than normal, to be really very enthusiastic. Because vehement here, vehemently, meaning, you know, absolutely in a sure, enthusiastic way, as if I'm absolutely positive, nothing wrong. But the noise steadily increased. What noise? You know, the noise in his ear, or the noise outside well, there must be a noise. Where is this noise coming from? So again, he's feeling angry. I rose and argued about trifles. Yeah, so this is, the beginning of his funny behavior, which immediately tells that there's something terrible. So he stopped. He stood up and he started walking and talking in a funny way. I arose and argued about trifles in high key and with violent gesticulations. Again, look at the verb. Again, high key, raising his voice in a loud voice. And these men will be sitting, looking at him. What's wrong with you? They would be saying to each other. And again, notice violent gesticulation. Very loud voices and, unbelievable gestures and movements and miming, and as if he was on a stage acting. But the noise steadily increased. La ilaha illallah. So he's always feeling that the noise is coming up and up and up and up. Why would they not be gone? So here he started to ask himself, I want them to go, but why wouldn't they go? So why wouldn't they go? So maybe there's something they know that I don't see, or something they see that I don't see. I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observations of the men. So he was moving and going up and down the room in a very angry manner, and as if he is really angry with them. He wants them to go. Notice here, excited and even fury. He said fury, and those heavy strides means really massive steps. He wants them to sort of go. But the noise steadily increased. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed. I think I like this verb. Suha, good morning. Sumaya, Marwa, Razan, Haneen, are you here?
Yes, doctor.
Yes.
Can you give me a word in Arabic, classical good word for this? I foamed. I foamed. One word in Arabic as a verb. Huh? Yeah? No? Come on. What's foam? Foam, what's foam? Are you asleep, my friends? Are you asleep? Hello,
No.
are you there? Huh?
I have no idea what food is.
Is it
What? Sorry?
Raghwa?
Raghwa. Yeah. Ar-raghwa. Very good. And how do you say this? As a verb here. A person saying, yeah. Who spoke? Was it Razan or who? Noor?
Noor.
Noor. Was it you who said raghwa?
Yes.
Yeah, make it as a verb. How do you say it?
Ragha.
Huh?
Ragha.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Look at it here. He said, I foamed, رغوت, أنا رغوت. Means I was really angry, so الرغوة came out of my mouth. As we say, when you get angry, you get bubbles out of your mouth, isn't it? Like الرغوة. Do you understand? We say, as we say, azbada, or again we say from a zabad, or not zibda, but again a ragwa really means getting really absolutely upset, so you get bubbles out of your mouth because it shows your real sort of anger or near death. And this is the verb. رغوت وزبدت. Wow. I raved. Look again, the word rave, you know, means absolutely angry. I swore. Again, look at the verbs. I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair. Swore, you know, again, meaning I blasphemed, you know, starting to say, you know, bad, terrible, cursing sort of language. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. You know how to grate? You know, not just to drag, but trying to create terrible, squeaky, horrible noise out of dragging something or pushing something, because he wants to show that he's angry. Grated it upon the boards, but the noise arose over all and continually increased. It grew louder, louder, louder. And still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. You know, now he's, as you can see, I'm saying, he's, the whole thing is in his mind, by the way. There is absolutely nothing. It's in his mind. And smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Was it possible they heard not? You know, he's really absolutely mad to know, are they really okay? Do you know, can they see anything? Or do they believe me? Or can't they hear anything? Or is it only me? So this is really the real evidence here. You know, what he's, again, that's not enough for him, because he thought that they were laughing at him. So that's why he told them, God, Almighty God, oh no, they heard, they suspected, they knew, they were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought, and this I think. Oh. Again, he's saying, I thought, and I think. So it's in his mind, totally. But anything was better than this agony. Yeah. وَكَادَ الْمُرِيبُ, as I said, or, you know, أَنْ يَقُولَ خُذُونِي. This is it. Yeah. He said, maybe they don't know, maybe there's nothing, I think, I thought, etc. But he said, anything was better than this agony, because he said, I feel terrible. I am in complete agony, and therefore I have to get rid of it. And this is the punishment. This is the psychological punishment. Really, the psychological punishment is worse than any punishment. If you get punished psychologically, is worse than any punishment, is worse than physical punishment. It is. Anything was better than this agony. You know? So this is it. He said, I can't bear it anymore. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now again, hark, louder, 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 louder. Villains, I shrieked. Villains? Who? He's talking to the policeman. You villains, ya awghad. Why? Come on. Why are they awghad? They are not awghad. You are the waghad. Yeah. Villains, I shrieked. Look at the verb, shrieked. Means absolutely screamed in a horrible, in a terrible, loud, ugly voice. Villains, dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, here. It's the beating of this hideous heart. Yeah. I admit it. Dissemble no more. Notice here, dissemble no more. As if he thinks they were acting and pretending not to know anything. He thinks that they know everything. So he's saying, okay, maybe I will, as if to say, the word dissemble to mean to him and to them. He is pretending. He said, I will pretend no more. I will act no more. I was acting innocent. I will act no more. I admit the deed. I killed him. Tear up the planks. So they took out the boards where the body was buried. Here, here. It is the beating of this hideous heart. He's answering himself the question about the noise. He said, well, this heart is beating, and that's why this noise is coming from his heart. Of course, the policemen were really absolutely shocked and surprised because they heard nothing. By the way, there was no beating. There was no beating. There was no beating, except in his sick mind, in his crazy mind. And as I said, really, this is the psychological punishment. Absolutely. The psychological punishment. Punishment, which is worse than any punishment. And I think this is a lovely story in a way to say here about this man here is repeating and repeating and repeating, trying to say, well, can you forgive me for what I did? Well, I didn't think so. I will not. I will not. I will not. Allah Ghafurun Rahim, yes. Allah Ghafurun Rahim, yes. But I don't know. I don't know. I will not forgive him. So it's up to you if you do. But really, that's the idea here, that this punishment is going on and on and on forever. He's going to say this and repeat this to us, for a long time. And I think the writer really is saying, these psychological, and remember, as I said, really psychology, if you like, or the birth of psychology was at that time, nearly at that time, because Freud and people like Freud, the Freudian psychology, and people who, there were many people who wrote, who really talked, who practiced, psychology before our friend Freud to talk about it or to theorize about it. In fact, there were many people, many great writers, especially later on. I'm teaching a course, really. I'm teaching it to my fourth year students in world literature. Later on, inshallah, you will be with me if we are still here, all of us, inshallah. We will be fine and safe and good. In world literature, I teach a novel by a great Russian novelist, Dostoevsky, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Really, Dostoevsky wrote a great book called The Crime and Punishment. And I'm teaching this course to my world literature course. Actually, I'm teaching it today at 12 o'clock. It's an amazing example. It's exactly the same. It was written in 1865. It's the same time, nearly the same time no, actually Edgar Allan Poe died before Dostoevsky wrote his novel. So I'm saying here that Dostoevsky, even before Freud, you know, they talked about psychology and the effect of psychology and the question of crime. That novel called Crime and Punishment, really the same thing. Raskolnikov in that novel committed a crime by killing a woman and her sister. And in the same way, he pretended, he thought that he made a perfect crime. But at the end of the day, again, it was in his mind, and he couldn't tolerate it anymore. And he admitted it to his lover, to his young lady whom he loves. And that's why, you know, she made him confess. And then he was sent to Siberia, to prison for 15 years imprisonment. So the question here, really, he was so happy the minute he admitted. But before that, you know, the time he went on and on and on and on, going to the police, and the police couldn't tell. They were suspecting him, but there was no evidence. And this is the idea, like here, no evidence except him, his behavior, his attitude. And exactly, Raskolnikov, like our friend here, this man, yeah, even here, we don't know his name, you know. We have no idea what his name really is here. He's unnameable, funny, unnameable man here, isn't it? So that's why you know, you can see the whole story here, whole story. And I think this is the beauty of this story again. The whole story with no names. Can you see any name? Huh? Any names? Any characters' names here?
No. No.
Strange, isn't it? Amazing. You just say, I and my neighbor. I and my neighbor. You know? So we don't know anybody's names here. Even the policemen, when they came, he just said men. You know, they came, you know, 3 men. You know, no mentioning of any name throughout this story, which is really an amazing thing. It's a powerful thing by, I think, by Edgar Allan Poe here, really. The way he's telling the whole story without mentioning anybody's name, or even, well, not many characters. The only man speaking here all the time, the only action we see, the only voice we hear is, you know, is him, except only once when his neighbor said, who's there, you know, and he's saying it to us, if you like. He said it, you know, in a sort of indirect way, or quoting him, you know. So really, it's again a very symbolical thing to say that this is a story which symbolizes that there is no way you can escape. the psychological punishment. As I said, really, Edgar Allan Poe gave us so many other examples, really great examples like that. The best one, again, is, you know, another story called the Cask of Amontillado. Again, really, it's a lovely, amazing story again. The Cask of Amontillado, you know, and again, the story, another story called The Fall of the House of Usher. And this Amontillado, let me show you this. Really, it's an amazing, funny, really story. Yeah, just. Yeah, I'm looking here about certain images. I want to show you this. I want to share with you just this little thing here. Again, yeah, let me share it with you. Just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Mr.
Well, this is the story, and this is our man, our friend Edgar Allan Poe. And here the story, if I can make it a bit, yeah, it really. Yes. Here the image of the people here. I mean, look at the images here, of course, about the idea about the wine and trying to taste the wine and so on. Because here, cask, these are like barrels, like these barrels of wine. And, you know, he dragged this man here to think that he's here to taste the wine, and he buried him in the wall, buried him alive, because again, the same thing, that he hates him. And why? Of course, again, we say, why? No reason, really no reason, which is, again, you say, what's going on? Why? Look at it here, I think. Do you still see my screen? Yeah. So really, this is again, another great story by him, by Edgar Allan Poe. Again, a short story here. It's the same. Yeah. Notice here, this is of course briefly from Wikipedia, which is quick, but not reliable. But I think it's okay. You know, like in Black Cat, like in The Telltale Heart. Again, here, you know, it's to do with the murdering something. But again, it's the whole thing really is done in a horror kind of thing. Really, as I told you, a horror, or, you know, Gothic, as I said, the Gothic, the terrible, really amazing, again, revengeful for no reason. Again, you know, really, this is you know, again, is the shocking thing, really. So this story here, the Cask of Amontillado, is exactly the same, burying a man in a wall. Like in the fall of the House of Usher, I think it's not mentioned here, but well, it should be, because I think it's at the bottom. If we look here in the notes, yeah, it's not shown, but the fall of the House of Usher is exactly the same, but in a different texture. Again, here, a brother burying his sister. I said, come on, man, you are terrible. You know, our friend here, amazing. Anyway, I think that's it for this short story. I will move on to the, if you like, to the next one. If you have any questions, yeah.
I just have a question.
Yeah, please.
If he really killed that man, or he just, or it was just an illusion.
An illusion.
Because I saw a similarity between it and the Joker movie. If you watch it, if you have watched the Joker movie, I think they are the same.
No, I don't know. I have never watched the Joker movies. I don't know what they are. I don't really know.
It's like
You mean the whole thing is a joke?
It's like in the first scene in the Joker movie, the Joker was in a psychiatric hospital, and at the end of the film, it becomes clearly internally that he killed all those people that he hated only inside his mind, like it was an illusion just.
So the whole thing was an illusion.
Yeah.
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 The movie, he killed all of them, but I think that just he killed them inside his mind.
Yeah, I see what you. Yeah,
really.
Yeah, very good, Noor. Yeah, go on. You want to say more?
Yes, I think in this story, he just hated that man without a clear reason, just because of his eyes, and he just wanted to kill him because of that reason. I think it's not reasonable.
So what he was saying about the blood and killing and cutting, and when he said, come and.
Yeah, also in the movie.
The whole thing. So the whole thing is, I don't know the movie, but yeah, thank you very much for this. Really, it's a lovely comment. Thank you, Anur. I don't know the story, but yeah, I mean, your explanation could be possible to say, well, the whole thing is psychological. You know, you do this in your own mind. This is your wishful thinking. Yeah. It's your wishful thinking that you wish to kill. You really want to, and this is only in your mind. Yeah, could be. Yeah.
And he imagined killing him in detail, just in his mind. I will do that and that and that. He's a psychopath, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is a possible way, but really, I think this kind of horror fiction is not just in his mind, really. It's a real, actual crime, but he wants to hide it, and he thought that he is good enough to hide it, and he thought he was strong enough to run away with it, and then, of course, he could not, because we say this is a real crime. Yeah, I mean, it's a real crime in the novel, but it's not real outside. We don't know, but because there are people who, you know, there are crimes outside, isn't it? There are people who kill each other, isn't it? I mean, we have criminals in society, don't we?
Yeah, but I think his attitudes It's weird somehow.
Yeah, I know, but well, this is it. This is it. Killers are always, criminals are always weird and are always not normal and are always crazy in many ways. I mean, like, for example, as I said, in Crime and Punishment, you think, because it drives you mad and you think if you do this, then you will be fine. Yeah, I mean, you could see this.
Yeah,
And that's why we say people who do this, they are not okay.
yeah, and I think I wondered why he put that big effort to kill a weak old man like that man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, this is his own strange reason. Of course, as he said, hating his eye, a big eye. I don't know whether this man has two eyes or just one eye. Even this, even we didn't know. Even the story doesn't really say, is he one-eyed man, one eye or two eyes? He said his eye. He didn't say his eyes. Again, I think this is very funny and very strange to say that. So really the idea, yeah, I mean, what you say, to say that this is in his mind, but yet again, the other side of the story is that we have real crimes in society everywhere, every time. We have criminals everywhere in the world, and there are crimes everywhere in the world. And the criminals who do this, they think they will run away with it. They think they are strong enough. They think they are powerful enough, and so on. Really, psychology is saying you may kill someone, but the punishment in your mind, if you if you are really in one way or another, if you will be aware of it, then you will be punished. And as I told you, this is the whole study of psychology, Freudian psychology, or the real branch of science today. We have medical psychology today, which is a huge branch of medicine today. And we are all, in a way, we have our own minds and psyche to care about and to think about and so on. So yeah, you can say this, your argument, Yanur, could be possible, but I think Edgar Allan Poe and Crime and Punishment and Dostoevsky and many other people, really, they were talking about real crimes. They were reflecting on real crimes, on real society, because it's reflection from society. It's not reality, but it's taken from reality. And I think that's the whole idea. And that's why I was giving you more examples of this, the Cask of Amontillado, or the Fall of the House of Usher, a man killing his own sister and burying her in a wall again, alive, and she will be screaming all the time. And then, later on she will be discovered. He's, come on, what's this? So yeah, Edgar Allan Poe was, as I told you, really, in a real sense, he himself and in his family, to some extent, critics, I don't know him, but I mean, I've read a lot about him. They say he maybe had this funny thing in his family or in his parents or his own sort of real life problem about the effect of psychological side of it. I don't know, but he was an excellent example to show that throughout his short stories and throughout his poetry. His poetry, if you are with me, if you are going to be with me, inshallah, next course, literature 2, I will give you 2 examples of Edgar Allan Poe's poetry, about, again, the same thing about death and about losing your lover or your wife or the girl you love, and he blames himself maybe for her loss, especially in the short story, the lovely poem, called Lenore. Sorry, not Lenore, it's called Annabel Lee. Did I mention that to you before? Annabel Lee.
No.
Anybody studied that in the Lang? Annabel Lee. It's a short poem by Edgar Allan Poe talking about...
I think you mentioned that once.
Yeah, yes. It's an amazing, absolutely lovely, great poem. And I teach this poem always to my students when I teach poetry. It's a lovely example of music and tone and theme, and the question of death and the question of loss and the question of regret, the question of atonement, trying to atone, to ask forgiveness and so on. I will, inshallah, if I teach you poetry, I will give you that. It's a lovely example by Edgar Allan Poe. As you can see, I'm saying a lot of things about Edgar Allan Poe, because really, I don't want you to hate him because of this short story. Don't hate him. To me, I think he's a great writer. He's an amazing writer. I think I admire him a lot because he is a great writer in every sense. Powerful, the structure and the language he uses, the power of the language he uses. He was such a great writer. Forget about the ideas and the killing and all of this. Looking at his language and his style and the use of the language is so powerful. So powerful. And this is literature. Really, literature, first and foremost, is language and form and art. And I think Edgar Allan Poe was a perfect artist, absolutely perfect artist. And that's why I love him. Right, I think that's it today, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. I will stop here really with this note about our friend Edgar Allan Poe. And